Welcome to Let's Talk Sport on YouTube. And we've been gone for a while. All our hairs are grown. Literally, our weights have gone bigger probably throughout this lockdown. But that's the way it is. But for F1 drivers, how have they kept themselves happy throughout this? Well, Charles Leclerc woke up many people in Maranello the other day at 6 a.m. driving through the streets in his Ferrari car, which I thought would have been pretty cool. A lot of the locals got told an hour before, wake up. He's driving around the streets, and they're like, is he mad? But it worked out very well. Nice photography opportunity for the local fans. But I'm joined by Harry Wright and Jack Price for this video, and we are going to talk about who would be the next F1 World Champion after Lewis Hamilton, whenever that'll be. It could be in 10 years' time. We have no idea. Between Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo, Esteban Ocon, Carlos Sainz Jr., and Valtteri Bottas. Let's talk about all the drivers first, Harry. Let's talk about Charles Leclerc. This is a guy who I think in his very first season at Ferrari has done very well. 2 race wins, one in Italy that Sebastian Vettel has not done yet, and I think it's hitting him a little hard. And since Leclerc has come in, Vettel has looked to be in the shadows. What have you thought of Leclerc so far? Could he be a world champion?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, to cut the meeting exceedingly short, I would say he is definitely the favourite out of that group of drivers.
End the video.
Yeah, that's it. End the video.
We have a winner.
Yeah, that's it. No, he's been really very good. I mean, what is his second? Well, this will be his 3rd season in F1. You know, to be a race winner in your 2nd season is outstanding. I mean, not many drivers do that full stop. I mean, Ferrari, obviously, they don't like young drivers. They hire drivers who are experienced, have been around the block. You know, that's who they hire. They don't hire a new guy, and they have done, and he's rewarded them. You know, he nearly won his 3rd race in F1, Bahrain.
Yeah.
He arguably could have won that, and but for a dodgy engine, he could have won a few other times. You know, you thought he was never going to arrive, and then finally he gets his race win in Belgium, and that seems to open up the floodgates, and he goes and wins quite a few, and arguably should have won in Singapore too. You know, he's really found his feet. So yeah, I mean, initially straight away you'd say he's got to be the favourite, just because of his form last season. Ferrari built a good car. All it needs is Mercedes to have a couple of off days, and he's there. He's got it.
It's funny, Jack, because when Leclerc was at Sauber, I think we all said, didn't we? We can see the determination. As Harry mentioned, Singapore, when that pit stop strategy didn't work out for him and Vettel went ahead, Leclerc had a right go at his team, didn't he? He was saying, what's going on here? So it just shows that he's not a man looking at the future thinking, I could be world champion. No, it needs to happen now.
Yeah, well, there was a few times that season. I mean, like you mentioned Singapore, but I think Bahrain, obviously, when Harry said he had that engine issue, he was trying to say to the guys, look, what can I do? Can I save this? You know, is there anything I can do to sort of stop this from happening? Baku, when in qualifying he hit the wall, the team radio message of, oh my God, I'm so stupid, I'm so annoyed. You know, he was completely forgetting his age. And he was like, I've completely left the team down with this and what I've done. And it was such a stupid situation, is what he was saying. So I think, you know, well, I'm trying to think of a great analogy for it. But like as a young driver, to have that sort of thing already, to be saying, look, I'm already letting the team down. The team needs wins. I need to be this big dog now. I'm at Ferrari. So Harry's spot on in the sense that if Mercedes do a couple of mistakes this season, and we don't actually know how many races we're going to have this year, you know, we still don't have the main number. So, you know, if a couple of drivers maybe actually catch the virus and they have to sit out a couple of races, I think Ted Kravitz said it the other day, you know, if they have to be isolated for a couple of weeks, that might be 2 races out. And that's 2 race, you know, wins they might miss out on. So I think anybody could win it this year. But if Ferrari are as good as we're hoping they're going to be, I mean, the car looks good this year in terms of the pictures we've seen. If they are as good as we hope they are, then Charles Leclerc's, you know, definitely in the running for this year as well, not just in the future.
Who knows as well, if we only have 1 race and the rest of the season's cancelled, you know, if Sergio Perez wins the first race, he is technically a world champion.
Hey, Nicholas Latifi could win it in that race.
Who knows? Let's go to another youngster who I really, really like, and that is Max Verstappen. I think what I like about him is his determination, but he's one of those that if there's no gap, he still goes for it. He's just got that ability to act like a racing driver, but also, Harry, that the aggression he has, where he looks at drivers and thinks, look, I don't care who you are on the day, I'm going for that win. And you know, he shows it by, again, how determined he is. And in a way, Leclerc might have picked up a couple of things from him.
Yeah, I mean, you can't almost forget that Verstappen has been on the grid now for quite a while. I mean, since 2016, 2015.
Yeah, 5 years at least, I'd say.
Yeah, 2015 onwards. So he's probably more experienced than a lot of drivers getting their career full stop.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to still be what seems like about 15 years old, you know, he will, his main issue would be the car. You know, can Red Bull build a good enough car? I mean, they've been always there and thereabouts, but they haven't built a car that they can consistently win races with for the last, since 2014, since these new regulations came in. And I think that's not, with Honda now actually finally finding their feet, which is very annoying as a McLaren fan. It happens immediately after they leave. Yeah, Honda finally getting their act together. Red Bull always build a good chassis. It's only sort of twice in the last 10 years they've built a car which you'd say isn't good. It's just a matter of, again, a little bit like Charles Leclerc. If you assume Mercedes is going to win every race and will only not win a race if they break down and make a mistake, you know, Red Bull and Ferrari, I do think, are on relatively equal footing to win those backup races. Obviously, if it's a three-way fight, I couldn't call it. Honestly, couldn't say. I mean, I do think Verstappen's got a bit more experience. He's got, I'm not going to say a bit more fight, because I'm sure Charles Leclerc could give his best as well. But he's just got that insane aggression, but he's got the aggression to back it up. He's got the ability to back up that aggression. You know, he's not just aggressive for the sake of it. He's a good driver as well. So it's hard to say. You know, either him or it's the car for him, really. Yeah. You know, I think if he was in a Mercedes, definitely. I think most drivers, if they're in a Mercedes, but if he was in a Ferrari, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Verstappen he's genuinely out. He's one of those drivers that's so good. I don't think people appreciate how good he is because they just expect him to be good. They don't look at why he's so good.
And I guess as well, Jack, his character is what we love about Verstappen. And I think what I liked about, I think it was last year when he pointed to the Honda badge when he won a race. And it was kind of like that to me felt like a symbol to the team, but also to everyone watching F1 to say it's working. This is our plan with Honda, and the McLaren lot in the garage were like, Honda, who cares? It's all about Renault.
They'd already left, yeah.
But I think as well, off the grid, everyone loves him. Like, I don't see what there's anything to dislike about him.
And it's weird because he's had almost a fight with every single one on that grid. So it's weird that they all seem to like him. But you look at like Sebastian Vettel when he first came into the sport. I think his first couple of seasons with Red Bull, they had a couple of tussles, but obviously, you know, they're mutually, you know, on the same wavelength now. I think Lewis Hamilton the same. We saw some great battles against him and Lewis last year. Yeah. Hopefully we get to see that again. And in terms of that, you know, Charles Leclerc as well, you mentioned the pointing at the Honda badge. That was the Austrian Grand Prix, I think, last year when, was it when he pushed Leclerc and they had a bit of a tussle on the last couple of laps?
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, you can say that them two have a bit of a feisty run. And I think a couple of times last year they had that scenario. I just think going into the 2 rounds being in Austria, you've surely got to look at it and you think Red Bull have to be, you know, they have to go out the blocks immediately with that, you know, being their home Grand Prix. And that the last 2 years, Max Verstappen's won the race. So you have to look at it and you think, you know, Austria is the prime way. If you start the 2 first races of this season with 2 wins for Red Bull and 2 wins for Verstappen, I mean, he's in prime, you know, the perfect seat to go forward.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, Verstappen we will assess all these at the end, but very quickly, let's go on to, while it's one of the biggest surprises of the year, Carlos Sainz is going to go to Ferrari next year. And who knows, he might win the World Championship this year with McLaren, and then McLaren would think, oh, he's gone. It worked. But Harry, Carlos Sainz, I mean, look, I'll be honest, I don't think he'll be a world champion. There's someone, I love the guy, but I just have this feeling Carlos Sainz won't be a world champion. I think he can get race wins.
definitely get race wins. I mean, he arguably outdrove the McLaren last season. You know, Lando Norris, I absolutely love him, but he was beaten by Sainz. But Sainz is, I don't know, he's an unusual driver because he's basically, this will be, I think, the first time in F1 that he's been at a team for 2 years, really. He seems to have he's been like Toro Rosso, Renault, McLaren. I'm probably missing one in the middle there. And then Ferrari, you know, he's been at a new team sort of almost every year, it seems like. So he's kind of got that experience, even though, again, he's still relatively young. In terms of winning a championship, it'll be so hard to call between him and Charles Leclerc. If the Ferrari was the best car and, you know, it was between those two, I genuinely don't know, because he's never been in a car that good. He's really well driven every car he's been in, but it could be a sort of a Heinz-Harald Frentzen situation where the minute he finally gets into a good car, he's rubbish. You know, obviously I don't want it to be like that, but he put in some stellar performances in the McLaren last season. He did pretty well in the Renault. You know, he's done well for every team he's driven for, but Ferrari's a different beast entirely. And you know, I couldn't call it genuinely. I want to say, oh, he'll definitely beat Leclerc, but I don't know. I think it'll be so close between the two of them. But I'm very much. I mean, he is being brought in, let's be honest, as a number 2. You know, Leclerc is their focus. Carlos Sainz is being brought in as the backup, but he's kind of like Nigel Mansell to Alain Prost. You know, it's a very good backup to have.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. I think you are right. I think Leclerc will win out the fight, but I think it'll be very close.
I think as well, Jack, with Carlos Sainz, when Harry mentioned when he was at Toro Rosso, but then I think he had 2 races in one season for Renault, or he might have been out of the grid. I can't remember, but there was a moment in his career I actually thought he hasn't got long left in F1 because the contracts aren't working for him and he's going all over the place. But who would have thought he'd be a Ferrari driver after McLaren?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he's gone through a great list of Formula One teams, to be fair, already in his career.
Harry has just pretty much pinpointed his CV right there.
Yeah, you know, Renault, McLaren, and then moving on to Ferrari. I mean, it's a great CV. I mean, Harry's right. I mean, in terms of what happens, I think Harry's right in the fact that I think, you know, obviously Charles Leclerc, I think having the seasons that Charles Leclerc's had at Ferrari before Carlos Sainz gets there, I think is only going to help his winning the title before Carlos Sainz. I think, you know, Leclerc would be, like Harry said, in prime position for that. I think it was mentioned with the fact that Vettel's obviously leaving, that it's a bit weird in terms of you've got to get used to the way Ferrari deal with things. I think obviously that would be totally different to the way obviously McLaren do it. I think Ferrari is a very structured beast in the fact that the media in Italy are so on Ferrari. You know, any mistake, and obviously Charles Leclerc will have learned that in this last season just gone and the season he'll be doing this year, with the fact that any slip-ups, the Italian media just pounce. You know, it is unbelievable. So I think the pressure will be hugely mounted once you get into that Ferrari seat. And I think you could see that maybe the first year of Carlos Sainz, he is the Valtteri Bottas of Lewis Hamilton, maybe for Leclerc in the first season. Just see how that goes, and then after the first season, you know, Carlos Sainz may go into his own. But I think the first year with Sainz in that team, he may just be, like Harry said, you know, the number 2.
And I'll throw it back at you, Jack, because you've just mentioned Valtteri Bottas. Mr. Bottas, in my eyes, the Finland version of Rubens Barrichello. It just seems to me that the time is running out for him, and maybe because this is what I would love if F1 has only 8 races or something like that this season. I honestly think anyone can win it. Is that, who knows? He could look at it and think this might be my only chance in the best car, arguably, on the circuit.
I totally agree. I think this is possibly his last year at Mercedes, depending on how he does this year.
I hear Ocon's on the front door.
Well, Ocon's, I mean, George Russell, you know, the possibility of what's going on with Williams, George Russell may find himself, you know, in that prime seat for next year. I think Toto's dealt with the Rosberg-Hamilton situation. I don't think it would be the same sort of scenario. I think they're more respectful between each other, but two top drivers in the team is a bit debatable on how you deal with the situation. Toto's too old for that now. He can't be bothered with that. But just in regards to Bottas, I've actually put him in this list because I think he's sort of changed in the last 6 months, and I think he's learned from last year. He was a bit more feistier than he was last year. Every year he's been at Mercedes, he's got a little bit better and a little bit more confident in himself. Mika Häkkinen's been speaking about him in the last couple of weeks as well, and said, he's got to obviously iron out the mistakes, but we believe in him for this year. We believe what he can do, the talent he's got. And I think this is his, the perfect year to do it. There's a couple of videos that have gone out recently on the F1 YouTube channel where they've been asking questions about them, and they've all been laughing and giggling. I think Bottas has been on twice, like 2 little 3-second things, and he was so serious in it. It was like, whoa, Bottas has changed since we've last seen him. He's become a lot more serious, and I think he really wants it this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if he actually won it this year. I know I'm throwing that out because I threw it out last year and he failed on me, but I'd like to see Bottas win it this year. So
Harry, Bottas at the start of last season, I think he certainly showed that if he consistently did what he did in Australia, then no one could mess with him in a way. He can control the race.
The thing is, Bottas, he's just not consistent enough. As you said, like Barrichello and to a degree David Coulthard, on their day, those drivers were the best on the grid. No doubt about that. But he's not quick enough every single time. And he can say, I'm come back stronger, I'm Bottas 4.0, But the simple fact of the matter is, if he just hasn't got that consistent pace, he's just never going to have it. He's not going to win. And, and I don't mean to be critical of Bottas. I think he's quite capable of, he is quite capable of winning races. But, it's like, which season was it a few years ago where he went a whole year without winning a single race for Mercedes?
Was it 2018? I think.
And
he was under real pressure as well after that.
And that's kind of, that's Heikki Kovalainen level. Kovalainen and Mika Häkkinen, but some drivers they don't get there till later on in their career, and it may be this is the season. But I just think with Hamilton there, Bottas,
it's hard.
Doesn't have a chance. Even in the best car on the grid, he's got a better driver next to him. So unless, again, like Jack kind of mentioned, with a Rosberg situation where Hamilton has a fair amount of bad luck, Bottas, even if he's just consistent, even if he just finishes second every single race, all he has to do is have Hamilton crash or break down once.
That's it. But, that's what I find with Hamilton. He never retires. And I feel like if Bottas has a race where he retires, in my eyes, I think that's just, you really are pushing yourself now already, because Lewis Hamilton never has a DNF. I think he's had two DNFs in 4 years.
Wasn't it that race in Austria where they only retired once and both of them retired at the same time? Wasn't it supposed to be are you serious, man? Come on.
And Verstappen drove past and was like, yeah, keep doing that and I might win this whole thing. We'll go to Daniel Ricciardo though, because Harry, Daniel Ricciardo is, we love him, don't we? We would all like to drink some champagne out of his shoe, especially Patrick Stewart and Gerard Butler. They all love it. And look, just like Jack now, he's doing normality, which isn't normal for Daniel Ricciardo to drink from a cup. But the problem is coronavirus is here and they can't do that anymore. But Harry, do you think maybe one day Daniel Ricciardo can finally become a world champion? For him to go to McLaren, everyone loves that. Every fan loves to see Ricciardo in a McLaren car. But it's a tough one where he could be seen as a driver that's won a few Grand Prix and then that's it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a driver that he reminds me of, and I can't think of one off the top of my head. But he's just, every year that Renault's been in F1, I've hoped and prayed that this is the year that they've got it. They should get it, and they just haven't got it. So when he joined them and had a shocking year, but let's be honest, it was a terrible year last season for Ricciardo. I don't know if he should have stayed. I don't know how good this year's Renault is. But to move to McLaren it's interesting. But as you said, I think his chance is gone. I think he's probably, I think with Verstappen getting good, he was probably looking, saying, well, I'm probably not going to get a Mercedes seat. I'm probably not going to get a Ferrari seat. This is the best car I'm in, and I'm not the best driver in this team. He's probably looking away from the championship and more towards making lots and lots of money.
Yeah.
And not saying that, don't call him like a mercenary or something like that. But, he's not. But he's kind of, he's still in the best machinery he's obviously trying to race in. I'm sure this season will be a good car like it was last season, but it's not going to win races. And I'm saying that as a McLaren fan, it's not going to win races. And I think he's just kind of on the downturn in terms of not performance-wise for himself, but in terms of career. Is definitely. I don't think he's gonna. I just don't think he's gonna make it, which is a shame.
I think it is a shame. I mean, I think Jack, the problem I have with Ricciardo is he's never at the top. As in, he wins a race here and there, but it's out of nowhere. Like China a couple of years ago, where it was just a crazy race, and he won, and he never seems to win from the front. You never see him get pole positions, and I think that's my problem with him. The experience is actually not really there in terms of being up there all the time, and I think you're asking a lot for a driver like him when Hamilton and all that have done it so many times.
Yeah, it sort of surprised me when I found like a thing the other day where he's only won about 7 or 8 races like in his career so far, and it sort of surprised me because when he was at Red Bull, they were fighting in and around it, but I believe he'd won more or he'd achieved more in his career, and obviously, like you said, now he's gone a little bit backwards in terms of not getting the race wins. It's sort of when's that next win going to come for him? And it is something to think about. I mean, as a McLaren fan like Harry, having Ricciardo and Norris for 2021 is quite an exciting prospect, and obviously having the Mercedes engine as well for 2021 as well, if that's any good for them, will obviously be a bonus too. But I agree with Harry. As much as I'd love to see McLaren winning races, I don't think it's for the next couple of years. Will the budget cap that will be implemented help these drivers over the next few years?
Yeah,
is another thing. I mean, I think obviously if Mercedes and Ferrari get caught up a little bit with this budget cap, then these might bring the other drivers into the mix that we're discussing about. But I think, like Harry said, in terms of Ricciardo, I think possibly his days of winning the championship is numbered, but which is a bit of a shame because everybody loves Daniel Ricciardo, so it would be great to see him lift the drivers' championship. But I agree. I think there are other drivers on that grid now who are younger, and I don't want to say feistier because I think that's the wrong word. Because I think Daniel Ricciardo on his day is still that. But I think they've obviously got better opportunities with better cars at this moment in time. So yeah, sadly for the Ricciardo, he's not in the top.
Very quickly, lads, we'll quickly talk about Esteban Ocon. Harry, I think this all depends on what seat he's got, because he is a great driver, but I think it depends where his future is. Well,
yeah, I mean, I'll say up front, I am willing to. Esteban Ocon being a world-class driver is the hill I am very much willing to die on. Simply because I think he was so unfairly dumped out of F1. He was amazing at Force India. I don't think people appreciate it. He immediately matched Perez off from day one, and Perez was a very good driver. But also, go back and look at his, I think, 2014 Formula 3 season, the season that Verstappen famously did very well in. Verstappen finished third that year. Esteban Ocon won it as a rookie at the same.
And that was always shadowed as well. Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
He never got the recognition for being better than Verstappen. And then because Verstappen got picked up, but he didn't, he had to go to F3, and he absolutely walked that. I think he won the first race. I think he finished every other race second, and then won the last one and won it by miles. Went up to F2, did exactly, or GP2 or whatever, did exactly the same thing again. And then an F1 team won't look at him. And I just don't understand why. He gets loads of hate online as well because of that one incident with Max Verstappen. Honestly, I am a massive Ocon fanboy and will remain as such until the day that it turns out he cuts.
Sacre bleu. Sorry. Jack, quickly, can he become a world champion?
I think, like you said, it depends on where he is. I think, he's obviously still part of that Mercedes academy. I don't think he's going to win anything in terms of where he is at Renault unless they make serious progress. But that coming into F1, we have a plan of a 5-year plan or whatever. That went out the window a few years ago. So in regards to it, it depends on what happens with the Mercedes situation, how long Lewis Hamilton stays, what happens to Bottas, does George Russell come in? Who goes if both the Mercedes drivers go? I mean, Ocon and Russell might be an interesting combination at Mercedes if that was to be in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So, who knows? I think, can you imagine having Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, and Esteban Ocon all fighting? We've all seen them have scraps in the past. That would be a feisty scenario as a top 3 race.
And as always, a Mexican always beats a Frenchman, as we always know. I should leave Perez out of this. Okay, lads, shall we? Which driver then do you think will become world champion, either first or maybe the only one out of these lot that might be a world champion? Harry, let's go with you.
I mean, first up, it's got to be Charles Leclerc. Obviously, he's in the best car. He's in the best position out of all of the drivers we've talked about. And after that, I would say Esteban Ocon, just because he's the same age as Max Verstappen and potentially in line for a better seat. Verstappen, will he go? Mercedes will almost certainly want to take a punt on him one day, but it remains to be seen when that day will happen. But yeah, Charles Leclerc, and then the controversial, but Esteban Ocon.
Sergio Perez is angry right now. Jack, who are you going to go for? Are you going with Harry's choice as well?
I'm going to be super, super controversial.
Oh, hello.
I'm going to go Valtteri Bottas to win it this year. That's why he's on the top. And then I think if it came down to the 2 drivers, it would be, for me, Max Verstappen over Charles Leclerc in terms of who wins between the pair of them. I think if Red Bull can sort of get behind him, which they have done, we've seen that, how, he is the main man at Red Bull. If they can work that team around it and work together, then for me, Max Verstappen just edges it over Leclerc. Again, depends on what Ferrari do. Do Ferrari, are they as good as we hope they're going to be, or do they have another where they're close with Red Bull? If it's that close, then it could be anyone. But I'm going to go Valtteri Bottas to win this year, and then out of the rest of them, Max Verstappen to win first.
And I'm going to go with Karun Chandok. I mean, sorry, different topic.
Great choice.
I'm going to go with Verstappen just because I think he can do it better at the front. But again, the car just doesn't help sometimes. And maybe this year, 2020 could be a very historic year in F1, depending on how many races there are. And of course, some of these circuits will be used more than once. So that could help the team that wins the first out of the 2 races.